As we continue talking about national defense, we can talk about, from the United States perspective, defense policy. The 20th century attacks by nations committed to evil aggression like Hitler's Germany or Stalin's Russia, Japanese Imperial Army, all played into this. Current threats of possible attack against the U.S. or its allies. We see North Korea continue to make threats. Iran, Russia, Venezuela, Cuba, China, Islamic terrorist threats all play into this. Defense alliances and responsibilities to help protect other countries. We must help others protect their democracies so that other totalitarian regimes do not come in and overthrow them. And the value to the world of a strong U.S. military is it protects and advances freedom while also policing the seas against piracy and helps trade. We should want a strong U.S. defense policy, not just for our own good, but for the good of the world. Another factor into national defense is the Islamic jihadism, the international terrorism that's the single greatest threat to American peace and security in the world today ever since 9/11. Well, the origins and beliefs of Al-Qaeda and similar organizations are laid out in other books, but they are clearly set against Jews and Christians and those identified as such. They're against Israel. America is the greatest supporter of Israel, so they're against America. America was founded in Judeo-Christian values and principles, so they see that as part of this war against Jews and Christians. Explanations that primarily blame America for terrorism are mistaken and harmful. We're not in the terrorism business. Terrorist attacks carried out by Al-Qaeda and its allies are numerous since 9/11, but we also see it in places like Israel and what Hamas has done in 2023 and beyond. That is something that continues to happen in places throughout North Africa, for instance. So what are some solutions to Islamic jihadism? Well, superior force. They cannot be reasoned with, and bargaining won't work, so we just got to use superior force with them. What about wiretapping? Well, it should be allowed in order to stop attacks before they happen. Holding nations accountable that harbor terrorists has resulted in some 5,000 terrorists worldwide being turned in, and that was the result of a few years ago in Wayne Grune's book on ethics. It's only increased since then. Persuading people in Muslim nations to turn against terrorist groups to say, hey, most of the Muslims live there don't want that. They just got to rid themselves of the terrorist groups that are there. Moral reformation in American culture. Many Muslim extremists see the evil immorality of America and associate with Christianity and think Christianity is an evil religion because of immoral America. And then spiritual revival is needed among America and the only hope to reach hardened terrorists. We know in American life, wars in Iraq and Afghanistan in recent years were in line with just wars, as I outlined in a previous video. What about nuclear weapons when you're talking about national defense? Well, the history of nuclear weapons can go back to World War II and the saving of nearly 1 million lives by the dropping of the atomic bombs in Japan. So which nations have nuclear weapons today? Not only the United States and Russia, but the United Kingdom, France, China, India, Pakistan, North Korea, and probably Israel. Can the world successfully abolish nuclear weapons? Well, not in a fallen world. It would be foolish for us to give them all up because our enemies will keep them, and then they'll be stronger than we are. How can we effectively reduce the risk of using nuclear weapons? Well, deterrence by the credible threat of superior nuclear force and an anti-missile defense system that will prevent nuclear weapons from reaching their targets. That's why we should always want to lead the way in military, because we want to protect both ourselves and for our allies against such use. Some argue about the CIA. They say, well, you should never use something like the CIA because it encourages lying and so forth. And yet we know that spies are biblical. Joshua chapter 2, verse 1. He sent spies in to check out the land of Jericho. 1 Samuel 26, verse 4. 2 Samuel 15 and 16 and 17 all talk about spies, and it can be used in a helpful way. Again, in a fallen world, we should be willing to use them. What about coercive interrogation of prisoners? Well, the standard policy is the Geneva Convention of 1949 and how prisoners of war are to be treated and so forth, even in terms of interrogation. Exceptions would be terrorist attacks for deliberately attacking civilians and fighting out of uniform. That person shouldn't be entitled to protection of the Geneva Convention because they're not operating what we might call fair rules or fair play. Inherently evil actions should be prohibited in all circumstances without exception, so you're not just torturing someone unmercifully in the interrogation. What kind of means of coercion? Effective means of discipline with no physical damage. So inflicting acute pain or use of sodium pentothal, like a truth serum, or waterboarding. Question is, does it work? Well, yes, it does. Many leads have been provided using such means, sparing thousands or more of potential lives that could have been lost. When talking about national defense, people ask about, what about homosexuals in the military? Well, they should not openly serve, for the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell will undermine recruiting and retention. It impacts leadership at all levels. It has adverse effects on the willingness of parents who lend their sons or daughters to military service, and eventually breaks the all-volunteer force. What about women in combat? Well, while women can serve in supportive roles in the military, they should not serve in combat. Numbers 1 verses 2 and 3 talks about the men who were of age to fight. Deuteronomy chapter 3, 18 and 19. Jeremiah 50, 37, and a number of other passages would teach these things, that you just should not have women fighting on front lines in combat. And one of the reasons is they're a weaker vessel. Another reason is because if they do get harmed, there's a potential harm there. It's going to be a man's basic DNA to want to protect her, and maybe at the detriment of the entire unit, and the unit falling into enemy hands or getting shot and killed. And so you don't want to put women there on those front lines. That's a man's job in order to defend his nation. These are areas that the Bible speaks pertaining to our national defense.